Right from the get-go, I was a big fan of It's Always Sunny. I can't remember watching the first episode, but I do remember once I saw one episode, I fell in love. These guys were assholes. These guys did not learn. You did not want to be these people friends. You wanted to watch them catch on fire, and then in order to get out of that fire, hug other people and hope that the fire will just jump off them. Like when there's a symbiote and it's being offered a better host, but then now everybody's on fire, and these people are screaming, running around, not realizing that it's all their fault, and they're just blaming everyone else. And I watched every single episode I could, and this went on for years, and then I stopped. I want to get into it again. Do they hold up to nostalgia? Here's the thing. I have not seen any episode since season 4, and that was back in 2008. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to watch season 1 and then rank the episodes. For spot number 7, episode 3, underage drinking, a national concern. Imagine, if you will, owning your own business and standing around one day ecstatic to see it's full. Then you become curious. Why is it full? It's never full. Turns out it's full because people who aren't legally allowed to be in there are the only ones in there right now. Of course, your first reaction is to do the right thing because it's your ass. But then after a moment's hesitation, and because you need money to survive and eat, you rationalize, hey, this will be okay. And that's what we have in this episode, because the bar is full. Nobody understands why. Dennis isn't sure why. Then he notices that a lot of these people, they're young. These are high schoolers because nobody's carding, because it's nobody's job. So of course he kicks everybody out. Max starts thinking about it. He's like, you know what? Let's take advantage of this. So they take advantage of it. Then they get pulled into high school shenanigans. You start thinking, oh crap, these old people are going to take advantage of these young people. But then little by little you realize these young people could not care less about these old creepy guys. Mac and Charlie go to a party, and they even bring beer, and at first you think, okay, well now they're getting in too good. No, kids think they're assholes. Guy gets nervous around Dee because she gets drunk, and he doesn't want to do anything with her. At the end, everybody just kind of walks off and they leave the gang. I do like this episode. It was funny. It did have laughs and everything, but it's just whenever I go back and think about this episode, I always group it in. Like I always oh, they just get into high school shenanigans. Nothing really stands out. Okay, in sixth place, sometimes we find ourselves in a conversation we don't want to be in. We're going on through life, worrying about our own issues, freaking out about our own problems, panicking because of our own uppercut haymakers that life decided to throw at us, and we just need something to get through the day. The remote, a box DVD set, a snack, something to distract us from awareness of the pain of everyday existence. So we stop by a friend's house to get whatever it is we need. They've got news. And of course, it's never good news. Nobody ever has good news. And they want to share it with us. And of course, we can't get out because we need the thing. And they share it to us before we're able to get out. And we decide, you know what? An escape will be made. We are getting out. We get out. And then the guilt comes. Place 6, episode 4. Charlie has cancer. And right off the bat, probably as I saw the gang gets racist earlier, I saw the twist coming that Charlie was faking it the whole time. And that's kind of like the issue with this episode. It's just, I don't know if I could see it in a box because I knew that Charlie was faking having cancer. And why did he fake it? Because he wanted to get in with, the waitress, and there's some shenanigans that happen with Charlie and the waitress. So overall, it was a funny episode. But here's the thing. What saved it is Mac and Carmel. And so Carmel is this beautiful woman that, because they want somebody to sleep with Charlie so he'll feel better about his cancer, then Mac tries to push on them, like, hey, what about her? Turns out she's a transvestite, and you can see there's a bulge in her pants. And at first you think, okay, that's it. But then, throughout the episode, you start seeing them together. And even when Charlie goes on a date with the waitress, Mac and Carmel are going on a date too. And their date is so much sweeter. They get along fantastic. It's all going great until Mac, he punches her in the face because she snuck up on him. Episode 4, Charlie has cancer, gets 6th place. So there's this old adage which states to never judge a book by its cover. Don't assume just because something is damaged it'll be worthless. Something could be damaged and people still will pay money out the wazoo because it's just that great. Don't assume that new things have value, because It could be brand new, but it could be defective. Never look at a person and pretend you know what's going to come out of their mouth. Sure, it could be something stupid. Sure, it could be something racist. Sure, it could be homophobic. It could be funny. It could be heartbreaking. It could be any negative thing, but it could also be any positive thing. They could just send you flowing away in a sea of honeyed words. They could also open their mouth and throw up on you. 5th place is episode 1, The Gang Gets Racist. Dee introduces them to a friend, says, don't be weird. And they're weird because they think he's going to rob them. Of course he doesn't. He's a great guy. He's gay too, but you don't find that out till later. And they hire him to bring in some business for the club. Before you know it, Patty's Pub, or one of the most popular gay clubs in Philly. And they're not happy about that. This episode is a bit of a whirlwind. You see Mac trying to make friends with black people, and he ends up becoming more and more racist. Charlie ends up using a black woman who likes him, and she's really beautiful, to prove to the waitress, because of a quote earlier, because he said the N-word in front of the waitress, but he was quoting Dee's friend. And he just says, hey, I'm friends with black people. I'm not racist. So, waitress tells him. He's flirting and he loves it. It's a whirlwind, and which is great because I loved seeing the places it could take you. But the thing is, I don't know, it had this cringiness to it. I don't know. It was funny, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I should be laughing here. I had to take a break. I don't know. It's probably me. On the exact opposite that. You know how frustrating it can be if you were promised a happily ever after and you don't get it? Just imagine you're with a woman of your dreams, perfect in every way as far as you know, and you're gonna you run away with her. You're crossing the horizon. Turns out she's a werewolf. She transforms into a werewolf like that. Just blink, she's a werewolf. And not only is she a werewolf, but she's a savage werewolf that eats nothing but testicles, which is bad. But it gets worse because after she crushes them and eats them, you don't die because she has her saliva is some kind of salve, so it heals you. But you don't have testicles. And then it gets worse because she wants to talk afterwards. And she finds no offense, and she gets even angrier because you're passing out from blood loss. Now imagine, if you will, that you just thought about that, but instead of going over the horizon, everything's fine. The woman is exactly what she seems. And that's mostly what you get in Rank 4th, episode 5, Gun Fever. The pub is robbed, they get a gun, and shenanigans ensue. And the good thing about this is literally everything about the gun works. They push the gun, they do stuff with the gun. Charlie uses it to scare off a landlord who wants money, rightfully so. The guys take it down to the basement to shoot at a log. They walk around with it and they're like, I want to hold the gun, and they love the gun. Charlie gets shot in the head because you find out that he was the one who burglarized them because he wanted to set it up to make it look like all the other burglaries that are going on. And he got shot in the head, so he asked Dee to go do something for him. She goes and does it, and then he's like, you're not selling the gun. They're like, no, we're not selling the gun. So all the scenes with the gun is fine. It's great. And that's kind of what I like about this episode, is it gives you everything you wanted. But at the same time, it's like, but you got everything you wanted. It wasn't like the other episodes where everything was a whirlwind, or it twisted around nicely. That's not to say they didn't have any twist, because at the beginning of the episode, Dee introduces them to the new boyfriend. And it sets up so well that he's the burglar. Because she even says, you were making fun of our small safe before it was robbed. And they follow him around because they find out that he's dating all the pretty waitresses. But it throws you off a little bit towards the end, because he's like, you need to get a gun. You should get a gun because I always have a gun. And they're like, no, wait, why would he tell us to get a gun? If he's going to rob us. Well, at the end, after Charlie was shot, you find out that he was, in fact, the burglar. And he used the information of them going to take Charlie to the hospital to burglar. We all make mistakes. The question is, if it's not right or wrong, but what are we going to do about them? Because it's already happened. Though, it'd be nice if we can make sure things never happen that way at all. However, it would be nice if we could make sure nobody else could get out of the mistakes we made. Right? No. That'd be great though, right? If we made sure nobody was happy and they all had to suffer like we did. In fact, let's make the mistakes, but take advantage of it every day we could. And that's spot 3, episode 2, Charlie Wants an Abortion. And right off the bat, I knew this was going to be a great episode because Charlie's told he has a son. Then the group gets into an argument about whose responsibilities it is, why there's no condoms used, Sunday school, all that, which is fantastic. But what's really great is Mac, because he's like, no, nobody has a say. It's God. So he goes, and I love Mac's story in this because he goes to see some pro-lifers, and they want to get him to join them, and he says, no, I just want a pamphlet because I don't want to be involved with you freaks. So even the pro-lifer is like, I don't want to be involved with the pro-lifers. And then he gets with a woman. He comes off as extremely hardcore, pro-life, doctor killing kind of bastard. Gets her pregnant. Says she needs an abortion. She leaves him. She wasn't pregnant though, which is great. The other good thing about this episode is Charlie's son was a little shit. He's always throwing fits, always yelling, and he was just terrible. Then Charlie realizes that he can use him to get in good with the waitress. Yeah, he's stoked for the kid. Finds out later from his mom, no, son's not his. She got a divorce, so she wanted help. Charlie's like, you know what, that's fine. Can I still use the kid? Lady's like, go ahead. Kid gets drunk, vomits in front of the waitress. Yeah, good episode, but it was good in a way where it's just every individual scene was great. It doesn't tie in as well as a lot of the other episodes. Okay, so if you found a dead dog in your house, what would you do? You would wonder how it got there. There's a dead dog in here. Am I getting in trouble for it? Would you touch it? Would you poke it? Would you try to blame people for it? Would you call somebody to come and get it? You would argue you're not supposed to take care of it. Then there's the notion of picking it up, wrapping it up, throwing it away. You know, how do you deal with it? Why you? It shouldn't be you. It would be the story you'd like to read if you find a dead body in your house, right? Reacting to it and moving it. You want to hear about what happens with the dog, not survival and guilt, being human afterwards. And so that's episode 6, rank 2. The gang goes into the pub, finds a dead body. They point fingers, but the whole thing is taken care of within a few minutes. It's not a big deal. And then you meet the granddaughter. Oh, she's a cutie. And Mac and Dee have kind of like a competition to see who can swoon her, who's willing to go farther to have her. And this part is a little slow. Like when it was going on, I'm like, wow, yeah, they're terrible because they're hiring homeless people to go to like the wake to say, oh, they were friends and giving speeches or whatever. But it ties in really well with the episode because Dee decides she wants to go visit her pop-pop. She can't visit her pop-pop because old people, they make her sick. She gets nauseous. If they touch her mouth, she throws up. And so she freaks out, leaves. Charlie ends up, getting confused for Dennis. Turns out the grandfather was a Nazi, and he wants to be buried in that uniform. Through some more shenanigans, Charlie and Mac try to sell it. They realize they can't sell it. But the crowning achievement in this episode, and if it wasn't for such a perfect way everything tied in together, it'd probably maybe fifth place. The crowning achievement is at the very end because since Mac left to help Charlie with his, Nazi thing, Dennis got to sleep with the waitress. And he said, we banged, we made passionate love after Mac told him I don't want to hear about it. Mac gets mad. So they're there standing, looking at a burning box of Nazi memorabilia. And Mac says, you know what? Fine. He hands him a picture because the grandfather looked just like Dennis when he was young. Your grandfather was a Nazi. And he just leaves him there staring stupidly. Just fantastic. That brings us to the final spot. So say you have a friend and you become convinced because of something they say or how they react that they were bullied or traumatized in school. You make a big stink, you make a grand display, you do literally everything you can to cross the boundary into something that's not really your business because you see them doing something, just one thing that you could say, well, maybe that's sort of something that somebody would do that was involved or messed up or something negative happened to them. And then you kind of ruin their life. Rank 1, episode 7, last episode in the season, so the season went out on a high note. Charlie was molested, which sounds terrible, right? And it is, but basically what happens here, the group Mac reads a paper, some guy was being claimed that molested some boys. Charlie reads it, freaks out. Everybody's sure Charlie got molested. Dee and Dennis are the slowest part in this episode, but they're still good. Mac, you find out, is literally the most horrible person in the world because he freaks out because he wasn't molested. He thinks he was a cute kid, but that's okay because sure, even though he tries to lure the coach in question into touching him, he's the one who finds out it couldn't have been Charlie because the whole thing's about power. He read some psychology books. He tried to show them to Dennis and Dee and say, hey, no, it couldn't have been Charlie because Charlie, he was a kind of a psycho. He would turn purple and bite people. Of course, they laugh him off because they're the ones with psychology majors or minors or classes, and which is great in itself. But what really pulls this together, what really makes this episode is when you meet the Poils. If memory serves, they're Charlie's arch enemy, and they're terrible. We get a little bit of taste of them because Max says these kids were gross. Like, why would he pick these boys? Because they were always rubbing boogers on each other and just nasty. And then Charlie goes to meet them, and they're nasty. When the guy comes to see Charlie, he's draped in a towel. He's wet. So he tells Charlie come in, and he's just weird because he's not moving for Charlie, and he just seems like he wants to get close, which is weird. And then Charlie's like, "Where's your brother?" The guy's like, "We just got out of the shower. He'll be down shortly." They're very close brothers. Brother comes down dressed in underwear. Kind of, he has a Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Land feel to them. Turns out they're blackmailing Charlie because, you know, they're gonna blame him because he said that they should do that when they're drunk once. And you would think, okay, each one of those things would be, you know, good on its own, but it all comes together because Dennis and Dee decide to throw an intervention. Everybody thinks Charlie's molested, which he might have been because he had a really creepy uncle. Like they're having a doll scene that they're telling him, you know what? Touch the doll where you were touched. And the uncle is like, slower, which basically pushes Charlie over the edge. He decides that he tells them, yay, you know, I'm going to go with you to get in on this action. He doesn't get in. He ends up reporting the police, leaving, and then going to tell everyone he's going to cry in the back room while getting drunk. That was It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia season 1. You know, I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. Really great. So yeah, if you like this video and you would like to see more, subscribe.